The stars hung like ancient sentinels in the void as Captain Leora Solis paced the command deck of the Perseverance, flagship of the Aluric fleet. It was supposed to be just another quiet night in the expanse, their colony of ardent prime light years away, safe, advanced, and thriving. Yet here they were, huddled over a cryptic signal that defied explanation. "It's authentic," said Lieutenant Cameron Vale, her voice laced with disbelief. "It's originating from Sol, from Earth." A hush fell over the command crew. Earth. The word lingered like a forbidden prayer. A planet spoken of only in history texts and bedtime tales of a blue cradle that had birthed humanity long ago. For generations, the colonies believed Earth was dead, lost to wars, resource collapses, or cosmic calamity. Earth was myth. Leora narrowed her eyes at the transmission scrolling across the main holoscreen. It wasn't just a flare or a rogue echo of forgotten tech. It was structured, intentional, a message carrying coordinates and a single directive. "To our children among the stars, return to the cradle. We're still here. Earth endures." Still no response. Leora asked, her voice steady. "None, Captain," replied Ensign Raylan, his fingers dancing over the console. "The signal repeats every 6 hours, but there's no reply to our hails." The transmission had triggered debate across the Aluric colonies within hours of its detection. Scientists claimed it was impossible, a trick of space-time echoes. Politicians labeled it a trap. Some believed it wasn't Earth at all but a new, unknown species luring humanity into an ambush. But Captain Solis wasn't like the others. A decorated officer and explorer, she had charted more unclaimed stars than any captain in the fleet. Where others saw danger, she saw purpose. "Lieutenant," Leora said suddenly, "verify the Perseverance's jump drives are ready." Cameron hesitated. "We're going after it." Leora turned, her dark eyes resolute. "We can't ignore it. Whether this signal is salvation or trap, someone has to see for themselves, and the Perseverance will lead the way." A murmur of agreement, or unease, swept across the deck. Arden Prime's leadership had not yet sanctioned a mission to Earth, but Leora knew the signal wouldn't wait. The void had taught her one truth: when opportunity knocked, hesitation killed. She stood before her crew, her voice carrying the weight of generations. "For centuries, we've believed we were the forgotten children of a broken Earth. But if there's a chance, a single chance, that Earth still lives, we owe it to ourselves to find the truth, no matter what waits for us." The crew exchanged uncertain glances, but slowly, one by one, they nodded. Excitement and dread mingled in the air. "Helm," Leora ordered, stepping forward, "plot a course for Sol, full speed." As the Perseverance surged into the dark, an uneasy silence settled. Beyond the stars lay a forgotten world, a cradle shrouded in dust and mystery. What waited for them on Earth, salvation or ruin? None could say. But Captain Leora Solis swore to find out. The void stretched endlessly, cold and unyielding, as the Perseverance pierced through the darkness at faster-than-light speeds. For the first time in centuries, a human vessel was heading toward Sol, toward Earth. Captain Leora Solis sat in her command chair, her gaze fixed on the swirling star charts flickering across the holoscreen. "ETA to the Sol system?" she asked, her voice steady, though the tension on the bridge was thick enough to cut. 39 hours, Ensign Raylan replied, his fingers gliding over the console. "Jump drives are holding steady, Captain, but we're detecting fluctuations in subspace fields ahead." Leora's brow furrowed. "Fluctuations?" Cameron Vale, the lieutenant overseeing tactical systems, turned in her seat, worry pinching her features. "It's strange, Captain. The readings aren't natural. There's something deliberate about them." Leora rose from her chair and approached the holomap. A cluster of anomalies shimmered across the projected path, like fractures in the fabric of space itself. Could these distortions interfere with our jump? "Not enough to stop us," Cameron said, "but they're strong. Almost as if someone, or something, doesn't want us getting to Sol. A quiet chill settled over the bridge, but Leora's expression remained stoic. Push through it. If there's a trap waiting for us, we'll face it head on. The crew returned to their duties, but the hum of unease never left the room. Everyone could feel it. Something was wrong. As the hours ticked by, reports of strange occurrences trickled through the fleet. Lights flickered inexplicably, shadows seemed to linger in corridors longer than they should, and comms crackled with bursts of static that sounded eerily like whispers. Ghost stories, Cameron said to Leora later as they stood in the quiet of the observation deck. Through the viewport, the stars stretched into streaks of light, the beauty of faster-than-light travel marred by unease. "You don't believe it?" Leora asked, watching her reflection in the glass. Karen scoffed faintly. "Of course not. Space messes with people's heads. I'm sure the whispers are just the hum of the engines or stress playing tricks on the crew." "Maybe," Leora murmured, though her tone carried doubt. She'd been in space long enough to know that when seasoned explorers got jittery, there was often a reason. The Perseverance dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Sol system with a heavy shudder. Alarm klaxons immediately blared across the bridge. "Report," Leora snapped, striding to her chair. "Gravitational anomalies detected," Ryland shouted over the noise. "It's not natural. There's something here." "Visuals on screen," Leora ordered. The view shifted, and the bridge fell silent. Ahead, drifting ominously at the system's edge, was a massive structure, an alien ship the size of a small moon. Its surface was blackened and jagged, as though it had been scorched in battle. Dark red lights pulsed across its hull, like the slow heartbeat of a sleeping beast. Karen's voice was barely a whisper. "That's no human design." Suddenly, a deep, resonant hum vibrated through the ship, rattling their bones. The alien vessel's red lights flared brighter, and a signal, different from the one Earth had sent, pounded through their comm systems like a scream. "You should not have come." The bridge erupted in chaos. "Captain," Ryland shouted. "The ship, it's powering up weapons." Leora's eyes narrowed, her voice cutting through the panic like steel. "Raise shields. Prepare evasive maneuvers. All ships in the fleet, maintain formation." The Perseverance surged forward, engines blazing as the alien ship's weapon systems came online. Leora gripped her armrest, determination burning in her eyes. They were humanity's first emissaries to return to Earth, and they would not fall here, not before they discovered the truth. "Send a warning to the fleet," she commanded. "If they want to stop us, they'll have to fight for it." And as the first beams of crimson energy lanced across the void, Captain Leora Solis swore silently to herself. No matter what monsters waited in the dark, she would see Earth again. The Perseverance plunged through the darkness, its engines burning hot as alien weapons screamed past. Explosions erupted on the starboard shields, jolting the ship like a hammer striking steel. "Evasive maneuvers," Captain Leora Solis barked, holding tight to her chair as the bridge rocked violently. "Return fire, target their weapon systems." "Firing," Lieutenant Cameron Vale shouted, fingers flying over her console. Beams of radiant energy lanced out from the Perseverance, striking the massive alien ship's hull. The dark structure groaned under the assault, its red lights flickering, but the behemoth remained intact. "Captain," Ensign Ryland's voice was taut with alarm. "The fleet is under heavy fire. 2 escort ships have already been crippled." Leora's teeth clenched. They were outgunned, and every second spent here was a death sentence. "All ships, disengage. Plot a course for Earth. We'll lose them in the system's debris fields. Go now." The Perseverance's engines roared, the fleet following close behind as they burned for the inner planets. The alien ship loomed behind them like a predator, its crimson weapons flashing in the black void, but as the human ships reached the asteroid belt, it slowed. The lights across its hull dimmed, and it vanished into the shadows, as though it had never been. Silence fell over the bridge, save for the hum of systems straining under the damage. They let us go, Karen said quietly, her tone wary. They're not finished with us yet, Leora replied grimly. They wanted us to see them, to know they're watching. Raylan broke the silence with a shaky voice. Captain, we've reached orbit over Earth. Leora turned toward the viewport as the ship slowed to sublight speed, and the sight froze her in place. Earth, humanity's cradle, was not the vibrant blue world from history books and stories. From orbit, it looked wounded. Vast swaths of the planet were scorched black, continents pockmarked with craters, and entire cities were nothing more than skeletal ruins. Dust storms churned through the atmosphere, and the oceans, though still expansive, were tinged with gray. Gods, Karen whispered, her voice full of disbelief. Scan for life signs, Leora ordered softly, a pit growing in her stomach. Raylan's hands moved quickly over his console. Moments later, the holomap displayed faint blips of human life, scattered across the globe, deep underground, and in remote regions. There are survivors, Captain, he said, mostly clustered in subterranean cities. But the surface? He hesitated. It's a wasteland. Patch me through to the fleet, Leora said, rising to her feet. Moments later, her voice echoed through every ship. This is Captain Solace. Earth is still alive, but just barely. We found survivors, and we're going to make contact. This mission isn't over. If Earth has endured this long, so will we. The crew erupted into quiet murmurs of hope and determination. Prepare a landing team, Leora commanded. I want boots on the ground in 20 minutes. Are you sure that's wise, Captain? Karen asked cautiously. We don't know what's down there. Radiation, hostile survivors, or worse. Leora turned to face her. We came here to find the truth, Lieutenant. That truth is waiting for us on the surface. 20 minutes later, the Perseverance's dropship pierced through Earth's turbulent skies, fire licking its sides as it descended. From the viewport, Leora saw the shattered landscape in full detail, collapsed cities swallowed by creeping deserts, roads cracked like brittle bones, and forests of skeletal trees stretching as far as the eye could see. As the dropship touched down in what had once been a bustling metropolis, the landing ramp hissed open. The air outside was thin and acrid, laced with ash and dust. Stay close, Leora ordered, gripping her plasma rifle as she stepped onto the ruined Earth for the first time. The silence was suffocating, broken only by the crunch of debris beneath their boots. Signs of humanity were everywhere: rusted vehicles, broken machines, faded murals on crumbling walls. This had once been home. Movement. A soldier hissed, raising his weapon. Leora froze, her heart pounding. From the shadows of a nearby building, figures emerged, humans, thin and ragged but alive. Their eyes were wary, their faces smeared with soot and grime. An older man stepped forward, gripping a makeshift staff, his voice hoarse as he spoke. You've come back, he said, his gaze locking onto Leora's. After all this time, the stars have returned you to us. Leora lowered her rifle, awe swelling in her chest. We're here to help. The man shook his head slowly. You don't understand. You shouldn't have come. Before she could respond, the ground trembled violently beneath their feet, and a distant, inhuman roar echoed across the desolate city. The nightmare on Earth was far from over. The ground trembled again, shaking loose dust and debris from the hollowed-out buildings. The deep, resonant roar echoed through the ruined city, reverberating off the crumbling walls like the growl of some colossal predator. Captain Leora Solis turned sharply, gripping her plasma rifle. Form a perimeter, she barked to the landing team. Her crew sprang into action, forming a tight defensive circle around the survivors. The older man, the survivor who had spoken moments earlier, raised his hand, his weathered face pale. Weapons won't help you. It doesn't care about your firepower. What is it? Leora demanded, her voice steady but sharp. The man swallowed, his voice a whisper. A guardian. From the east, The tremors intensified. Leora glanced toward the horizon, where the skeletal remains of a skyscraper began to collapse, sending a plume of dust skyward. Something massive stirred beyond the veil of ash and smoke. A silhouette, impossibly large and alien, began to emerge, hundreds of meters tall, its limbs jagged and shifting, its form an unnatural blend of organic and machine. Its surface pulsed with faint red light, matching the hue of the alien ship they'd seen in orbit. "Gods help us," Lieutenant Cameron breathed, her voice breaking as the Guardian let out another bone-rattling roar. "Raylan," Leora shouted into her comm. "Get the Perseverance on standby for immediate extraction. We're not staying here to fight that thing." "Copy that, Captain." Ryland's panicked voice crackled through the comms. "We'll be ready, but something's interfering with our signal. The alien vessel is jamming us." Leora cursed under her breath. "We need to move now. Where can we go?" she asked the old man. "There's a tunnel entrance, not far," he said, pointing toward the cracked asphalt of a nearby road. "It leads to one of the subterranean cities. It's where we survive." "Move out," Leora ordered her team, motioning for the survivors to follow. The group broke into a sprint, stumbling over rubble and broken roads as the tremors grew worse. Behind them, the Guardian began to advance, each of its footsteps like a meteor strike. The air vibrated with its presence, as though reality itself struggled to contain the creature's sheer size. Leora glanced back as she ran and felt her stomach drop. Red beams of light began erupting from the Guardian's form, arcing across the ruined city and carving deep trenches into the earth. A nearby building vaporized in a brilliant explosion of ash and fire. "Go, go, go!" she shouted. They reached a shattered intersection where the road had been cracked open. Below, a tunnel entrance lay half-buried, its steel doors ajar. Without hesitation, Leora grabbed the old man and pulled him inside, followed closely by her crew and the ragged survivors. The last soldier dove through just as a beam of energy obliterated the road above, sending shards of molten rock raining down. The tunnel shook violently but held firm. Darkness enveloped them, broken only by the faint glow of plasma rifles and handheld lights. The distant roars of the Guardian echoed through the tunnels like a fading nightmare. The old man leaned against the wall, breathing hard. That was one of many. They guard the surface now, hunting anything that dares walk in the open. Leora stared at him, trying to process what she'd just witnessed. What are those things? Why are they here? He looked at her, sorrow etched into his features. "They are Earth's punishment and our jailers, but you're not ready for the truth." Leora's eyes narrowed. "Try me?" The man hesitated before speaking. "They arrived centuries ago. We don't know if they created the devastation or came because of it. But they claimed Earth as their own, and the survivors fled underground. We call them Guardians because they keep us here. They keep us from leaving." Karen stepped forward, her voice cold. "Why jam our signals then? Why did that alien ship try to stop us?" "Because," the man said darkly, "the Guardians don't just guard the surface. They guard a secret." Leora exchanged glances with Cameron, her heart pounding. This mission had gone from a search for survivors to something far more sinister. Earth wasn't just a graveyard, it was a prison. "We need to get back in contact with the fleet," Leora said firmly. "Whatever these things are hiding, we're going to find out, and we're going to survive." The old man shook his head. "You don't understand, Captain. No one survives the Guardians." Leora turned, determination burning in her eyes. "We'll see about that." The tunnel stretched endlessly into darkness, damp and cold. Captain Leora Solis kept her plasma rifle raised, its faint glow casting eerie shadows on the cracked, concrete walls. Her landing team and the survivors moved in silence, save for the scuffing of boots and the occasional muffled cough. "What did he mean? They guard a secret?" Cameron muttered, staying close to Leora as they descended deeper. "What kind of secret needs those things to keep it?" I don't know, Leora replied, her tone tight. But we're going to find out. The old man leading the way paused at a junction where ancient tunnels split in 3 directions. He turned to them, his lined face half lit by their lights. We're close. The others will want to meet you. Others? Leora asked. The man nodded. The council, the last leaders of Earth's survivors. They will explain what you must know and decide if you can be trusted. Before Leora could press further, a sound echoed down the tunnel, low and metallic, like grinding gears deep underground. It reverberated through the stone, sending a chill up Leora's spine. Something's moving, Rylan said, his voice shaking. It's beneath us. Move faster, Leora ordered. We're sitting ducks in these tunnels. The old man led them down the leftmost path, and soon the air grew warmer, heavier. Lights appeared in the distance, actual lights, glowing faintly along the walls. They reached an enormous metal door embedded in rock, its surface etched with unfamiliar symbols. It slid open with a deep hiss, revealing a vast underground cavern teeming with life. Leora froze. The cavern was a city. Humans bustled through makeshift streets built from salvaged technology and reinforced steel. Fields of algae and mushrooms grew under solar lamps, while drones patrolled overhead, their glowing eyes scanning the crowd. A massive dome stretched above them, its supports carved into the very bedrock of the earth. This is incredible, Karen said, awe in her voice. They call it sanctuary, the old man said. One of the last. There used to be many, but the Guardians found them one by one. As they moved deeper into the underground city, curious eyes turned to them. Survivors stopped their work to watch the newcomers, some in wonder, others in suspicion. Leora felt the weight of generations of suffering pressing in from all sides. This was humanity reduced to scraps, to shadows of what it had been. At the heart of the city stood an ancient control center. The walls were lined with monitors, some flickering, others dead, displaying maps of Earth, systems diagnostics, and grainy footage of the surface. In the center of the room sat a circular table where a group of elders waited. The council. An older woman with silver hair and sharp, knowing eyes stood as Leora approached. You're from the stars, she said, her voice echoing across the room. We saw your fleet descend, and we feared the worst. We came because of the signal, Leora said, to find Earth and bring it back into the fold. The woman shook her head slowly. Earth is beyond saving, Captain. You should not have come here. Why? Leora demanded. What happened to this world? What are those Guardians? Who sent the signal? The council exchanged grim looks before the woman spoke again. The Guardians are not invaders. They are jailers. Long ago, Earth unleashed something it could not control. A weapon, a force so catastrophic that it reshaped the planet. Leora's heart pounded. What weapon? The woman motioned to a nearby monitor. Grainy video flickered to life. It showed the sky turning black, massive beams of red energy lancing down from orbit, and cities crumbling in seconds. Then, something worse, a colossal figure, much like the Guardian they had seen earlier, rising from the ruins, its glowing core pulsing like a heartbeat. The Guardians were created to contain the disaster, to ensure it never left Earth, the woman continued. But over time, they became something else. They hunt us. They hunt anyone who tries to leave. And the signal, her voice faltered. The signal wasn't sent by us. Leora stiffened. Then who sent it? The woman stared at her, unblinking. Perhaps the Guardians lured you here, or perhaps something worse is waking up. Whatever the case, your arrival has changed everything. Before Leora could respond, the ground trembled violently. Alarms blared through the city, and lights flickered overhead. They found us, someone screamed. Guardians, a soldier shouted, rushing into the chamber. They're breaching the outer tunnels. Leora turned to her team, her eyes blazing. Rylan, get me the fleet. Now. We'll hold them off as long as we can, the elder woman said. But if you want answers, Captain, you'll have to go deeper. To where it all began. Leora's jaw clenched. Where? The woman pointed to the screens, where a single name appeared amid static. The core. The city shook with the fury of approaching destruction. The tremors were constant now, sending debris cascading from the cavern's ceiling. Distant booms echoed through the tunnels, each one closer than the last. Captain, we've lost contact with the Perseverance. Rylan shouted, panic creeping into his voice. The interference is growing stronger. Leora gritted her teeth, her mind racing. We don't have time to fight those things head-on. If the core holds the answers, that's where we're going. She turned to the council leader, her tone firm. Where is it? The elder woman hesitated, fear flickering across her features. The core lies far below, deeper than any human dares venture. It was the center of Earth's last great mistake. Show me, Leora pressed. The woman motioned toward an ancient map etched into the wall. A glowing line traced a path from Sanctuary to the planet's depths, a vertical descent into the unknown. At the bottom, a single word pulsed in red, core. It's a geothermal research complex from the old world, the elder explained. A place of science, turned into a tomb. But if answers exist, you will find them there. The cavern trembled violently, and a distant roar, deafening and inhuman, rolled through the underground city. A guardian was breaching the outer perimeter. We have no time, Leora barked. Rylan, Cameron, you're with me. The rest of you defend this place, buy us time. The council leader grabbed Leora's arm as she turned to leave. Captain, whatever you find in the core, know this. Some secrets are better left buried. Leora's eyes burned with determination, and some are worth dying for. The descent began in a forgotten elevator shaft, its rusted framework groaning as they stepped onto the platform. Rylan's hands moved across a control panel, reactivating the ancient systems. The elevator shuddered to life, and they began their slow, creaking descent into the abyss. Darkness swallowed them whole. Captain, Cameron said, breaking the silence, if the Guardians were built to keep this mistake contained, how did Earth lose control in the first place? Leora stared into the black void below, her voice steady but cold. Because humanity always pushes too far. We invent, we experiment, and sometimes we unleash things that can't be stopped. Minutes passed, the only sounds the whine of machinery and the distant rumble of Guardians moving overhead. Then, suddenly, the elevator jolted to a stop. Why are we stopping? Rylan muttered, banging on the controls. The lights flickered. Then, slowly, a new glow emerged from below, pulsing red, illuminating the shaft with a sickly radiance. Leora raised her plasma rifle. We're here. The doors hissed open, revealing an ancient underground chamber. It was vast, stretching into darkness, its walls carved with alien symbols that pulsed like veins. At the center stood a massive cylindrical structure, a monolith embedded into the earth, glowing with the same red light. The core, Cameron whispered. The air felt heavy, charged with an unnatural energy. Leora could feel it vibrating in her bones, whispering at the edges of her mind. This isn't just human, Rylan muttered, scanning the walls. These symbols, they're alien. The Guardians didn't just contain something here, they're part of it. Leora stepped toward the monolith, its hum growing louder with every step. As she reached out, her calm crackled to life with static. Captain Solace. The voice was faint, broken, but unmistakable. Perseverance? Rylan, can you boost the signal? I don't think that's them, Captain, Rylan said, his face pale. The voice came again, clearer this time. You should not be here. Leave, now. The red light intensified. The walls shook. From the darkness beyond the monolith, a sound emerged. A deep, guttural growl, not mechanical like the Guardians, but something far older. Something's waking up, Cameron breathed, taking a step back. Leora's pulse quickened. The monolith was vibrating now, the symbols flashing faster, as if alive. The voice echoed one final time, louder, almost pleading. Leave, before it's too late. Then the ground split open beneath them. The roar of the thing that had been sleeping erupted through the chamber, a sound of rage, hunger, and freedom. The ground heaved violently as cracks spiderwebbed across the chamber floor. Leora dove aside as a fissure split open beneath her feet, a surge of red light blasting upward like volcanic fire. Rylan and Cameron tumbled across the shaking ground, scrambling to regroup. From the core of the monolith, the pulsing glow intensified, its rhythm like a heartbeat, ancient, furious, and alive. "Everyone up," Leora shouted, yanking Rylan to his feet. "Move back to the elevator, now." Before they could retreat, a sound, low and resonant, like an earthquake with a voice, rolled through the chamber. The red glow flared brighter as the monolith split open down the center, its pieces retracting like petals of a metallic flower. From within emerged something colossal. At first, it was only shadows, a form too vast to comprehend. Then the light illuminated it. A figure, half organic and half machine, pulled itself free from its prison. Its skin was black and chitinous, covered in faintly glowing symbols like those etched into the walls. Its eyes, if they could be called eyes, were pits of burning red light, focused solely on Leora and her team. Karen took an unsteady step back. "Captain, what is that?" Leora couldn't speak. The thing before them radiated power, an oppressive energy pressing against their minds like invisible hands. She gripped her plasma rifle, though it felt like a toy in her hands compared to the monster that had just awakened. The figure's voice erupted from all around them, not a roar, but something worse. A whisper that crawled into their skulls, vibrating in their bones. "You should not have come." Leora winced, the words like daggers in her mind. What are you?" The creature tilted its massive head, its form pulsing with dark energy. "I am the first, the last, the catalyst. Humanity's arrogance imprisoned me here, and now you have broken the seal." Rylan's voice cracked as he whispered, "It's talking about the Guardians. We didn't wake them up to stop something. We woke this up. The Guardians were the jailers." Leora's mind reeled. The truth was a knife to her gut. Humanity hadn't been attacked all those centuries ago. They had created this, and in doing so, they had nearly destroyed the planet. "Captain, we need to go, now," Karen shouted, her voice desperate as the chamber began to collapse. The creature took a single step forward, and the entire room shuddered, stone and steel alike warping under its immense presence. Its glowing gaze fell on Leora, pinning her in place. "You cannot run, you cannot hide. I will finish what was begun." The team turned and sprinted for the elevator shaft, the monster's voice echoing behind them like thunder. Chunks of the ceiling rained down, and the ground buckled beneath their boots. "Rylan, get the elevator working," Leora screamed. Rylan fumbled with the control panel as sparks erupted around them. The shaking intensified, and a roar, deeper and more primal than the Guardians, reverberated through the cavern. The creature was following. Leora risked a glance back. The first was pulling itself forward, its enormous limbs crushing stone and ancient machinery like paper. The red glow spilling from its form cast monstrous shadows across the walls. The elevator suddenly jolted to life. "It's ready," Rylan cried. "Go," Leora shouted, shoving Cameron into the elevator as Rylan tumbled inside. She followed, slamming the controls as the doors hissed shut. The platform shot upward, vibrating violently as the earth beneath them continued to collapse. Through the narrowing gap of the elevator doors, Leora saw the creature rear back and unleash a bellow that shook her teeth. A beam of red energy burst from its core, obliterating everything in its path. The elevator rocketed toward the surface, the screech of twisting metal and falling rock rising all around them. Leora gripped a railing to steady herself, sweat streaming down her face. What the hell did we just wake up?" Cameron panted, her voice barely audible over the noise. Leora stared at the floor, her thoughts a whirlwind. A weapon, a god, I don't know, but it's loose now, and we're the only ones who can warn the fleet. The elevator slowed as they neared the surface, sunlight barely visible through the shattered shaft above. Leora readied her rifle, her jaw set. Captain, Rylan said, voice hoarse, if that thing gets out, it's not just Earth at risk, it's everything. I know, Leora replied, her voice steely, and we're going to stop it. The elevator reached the top, its doors sliding open to reveal the ruins of Earth's surface. The sky was still dark, and the faint outlines of guardians were visible in the distance, silent sentinels, but now turning toward a new threat. As Leora stepped out, she looked to the horizon. The ground trembled beneath her boots, and far below, the monster's roar erupted again. Whatever humanity had buried in the core was now free, and it wouldn't stop until everything burned. The surface was chaos. The tremors from below had spread, turning the ruins of Earth into a battlefield of collapsing skyscrapers and rolling clouds of dust. Above them, the massive guardians, once silent watchers, now moved with purpose, converging toward a single point, the core. Leora stood atop the broken Earth, plasma rifle in hand, her team at her back. The air thrummed with an unnatural energy. Then it came. The first rose from the fissures it had torn into the planet, its monstrous form silhouetted against the red-tinted sky. Its black, chitinous body rippled with waves of crimson light, and its voice echoed across the ruined world like the wail of a dying star. I have risen. You cannot stop me. The Guardians turned as one, their massive frames lumbering toward the first. They unleashed volleys of energy beams, missiles, and plasma strikes, their ancient programming compelling them to contain the very thing they were created to imprison. But the first laughed, a sound that rattled the very bones of the Earth. It raised an arm and unleashed a wave of red energy, obliterating a dozen Guardians in an instant. Their burning remains fell like meteors to the surface. Rylan's voice cracked. We're so screwed. Leora keyed her comms, praying the fleet could hear her. This is Captain Solus to Perseverance. A hostile planetary-scale entity has emerged from the core. Fleet, prepare for orbital bombardment on my signal. Static. For a moment, despair threatened to crush her. Then, Perseverance here, Captain. We're locked onto your coordinates, but the interference is still strong. We'll need a clear shot. Leora looked at the creature, then at the Guardians still fighting to contain it. She knew what had to be done. We'll clear you a window. Captain? Cameron turned to her, stunned. You're not serious. Leora's eyes were hard as steel. We woke this thing up. It's our responsibility to stop it. She pointed to a crumbling structure nearby, a communications tower still barely intact. Karen, get up there and mark the first position with a targeting beacon. Rylan with me. We'll keep it distracted. The team split up, moving with a desperate urgency. Karen sprinted toward the tower, dodging falling debris and rubble. Leora and Rylan pushed forward, firing at the first to no effect. The creature didn't even register their attacks. The Guardians swarmed it again, launching a final assault. The first roared, swiping through them like flies, its energy rippling out in waves. From the tower, Karen's voice crackled in Leora's earpiece. Beacon locked. Fleet, you have your target. Perseverance, fire now. Leora shouted. High above, the skies split open as the fleet's orbital bombardment began. Blinding lances of energy screamed toward the surface, striking the first dead-on. The explosion was deafening, vaporizing everything in its radius. Leora and Rylan were thrown to the ground, shielding their faces as the world turned to fire. When the light faded, Leora risked a glance. The first was still standing, but it staggered, parts of its massive body cracking, molten energy spilling from its wounds. You cannot destroy me, it growled, weaker now. I am eternal. No, Leora said, rising to her feet. "You're just a mistake." She fired her rifle one last time, aiming for the fissures in its form. The shot struck true, and the first let out a final, echoing scream as its core erupted. The creature collapsed, its form disintegrating into ash that scattered into the wind. The guardians froze. For a moment, everything was silent. Then, slowly, they turned and began shutting down, their task complete. Leora fell to her knees, breathing hard. Rellin clapped a hand on her shoulder, grinning despite the dust and sweat. "We did it, Captain. We actually did it." Karen's voice came through the comms. "Fleet confirms the first is neutralized. Earth is stable for now." Leora stood, staring at the shattered horizon. The Guardians were still. The planet, broken and scared, felt as though it had exhaled after centuries of holding its breath. "Earth will recover," Leora said softly, her voice carrying hope. "It always does." Above them, the fleet hovered like a promise of salvation. Humanity's forgotten home had been saved, not reclaimed, not yet, but saved. And as the sun began to pierce the clouds, Leora turned her eyes to the future. "Let's rebuild,"